Now, with certain countries like the UK going into a second lockdown, these really are amongst some of the toughest times that we've ever faced. And I've spoken to a lot of friends and family who have been really affected by the first lockdown, and it's now being compounded by this second lockdown. Now, some people have had severe mental issues, depression and anxiety, or frequently have this general feeling of fatigue. And if people have to work, they might feel fear and anxiety over catching the virus and having to go out every day when they don't want to. Or if they're furloughed or working from home and don't go out at all, they have a feeling of being trapped and alone in their homes. So I'm making this video with the hope that it might help anyone feeling alone, to let them know that they're not alone, and there are things that we can try to make things as comfortable as possible. Now, this isn't to minimize the situation and say things will be perfect after this video. They won't, but it's just about looking at things that we can do, things that we do have control over, that can help ourselves as best we can. Now, with that being said, I'm going to list some things that we can think about when dealing with lockdown. And the first thing is to release and recognize emotions, because when emotions are held back, tucked away, pushed aside, they don't just disappear, they just sit in the background and they hang around and they can get stronger. So it's important to release any emotions that might be felt. And I have a separate video that focuses on a method to release emotions below. Now, crying is a really powerful healer, and you might hear me talking about the positive benefits of crying a lot. And the reason for that is a pattern that I've seen with my clients is that before our sessions, they might say that they rarely cry or can't remember the last time they cried. And this is understandable because historically, crying may have been spoken about or viewed as a weakness when we were growing up, or seen as being emotional in a negative sense. But actually, crying is a powerful healer, and after people have a good cry and let out all that built up sadness, built up anger, whatever it is that we have pushed down over many years, there is a huge sense of relief afterwards and a feeling of letting go. Now, equally, laughing can bring about a powerful release of emotions too, and built up stress that we might have can be released with laughter. So if you've ever been in a stressful situation and then something makes you laugh and all of a sudden you feel better, well, it's that release of laughter which is a great way to release built up emotions. And sometimes in my sessions, people often cry and laugh at different points during the 2 hours, and afterwards they say they feel a huge sense of relief or release afterwards. Now, laughter decreases stress hormones as well as releases endorphins, which are the body's natural feel-good chemicals. And endorphins promote an overall sense of well-being and brings about relaxation. So think about it. Do you have much laughter in your life? Well, if not, you could bring laughter to you and focus on watching or reading something that makes you laugh. Perhaps it's comedies. There's also lots of comedy on Netflix that you could try, for instance. Now, the second thing to think about is to collaborate with our mind. And one of the rules of the mind is that it loves the familiar and avoids the unfamiliar. And if our mind loves the familiar and avoids the unfamiliar, the way to make a situation work for us in this new normal is to make the unfamiliar environment familiar. Because right now, a lot of what we're doing is unfamiliar. We're spending less time with friends and family than we used to. We're not visiting our favorite pub or regular gym or hangout. And we're out of our usual routine. So a great way to get around this and make our current environment familiar is to turn it into a routine, a new routine. Because a lot of the time when I speak to clients or when people message me, they have these feelings of being lost at home, having a lack of direction, and they wake up in the morning and think, right, what am I going to do today? Or they sit at home in the evening and think, I'm so bored, I'm stuck at home and there's nothing to do. And the feelings of loneliness and depression is felt even more. So one method around this is to create a new routine around the things that we can do. Yes, there are work priorities, but importantly, in the routine or schedule would be things that keep you healthy. Maybe a healthy meal plan, things that are fun, personal admin, home improvements, schedule in regular video calls with friends and family, regular date nights with your partner, even if it's at home, exercise and yoga time, healthy 8-hour sleep time, meditation time, walks outside. Another element you could include is time to learn something new. So have you ever wanted to learn something new? Now, there are tons of online courses or free information on YouTube, and these courses and videos are about every hobby you can think of. So you could schedule in time to develop a new hobby or skill that you didn't have time for before. Now, overall, create a new routine that organizes you, but more importantly, brings you joy and helps you with overall wellness. And then as the mind learns by repetition, after repeating these activities again and again, they then become familiar. And repetition creates a comforting familiarity and healthy habits and allows you to gain clarity and some control over your environment. And in fact, there is a saying that routine sets you free. Now, I did in my last point mention a healthy meal plan because study after study has shown that the food we eat has a direct influence on our emotions, and during lockdown we can turn to unhealthy ways of coping, like drinking too much, smoking too much, or overeating junk food in an attempt to self-medicate mood and deal with stress. Now, while these can feel great temporarily, in the long run, they'll make depression and anxiety symptoms much worse. Now, I'm not one to villainize any food group. I don't believe in cutting out anything altogether, but I do believe in an 80-20 guide. That means that 80% of the time we focus on all of those veggies, protein and healthy fats that make us feel good long term, and 20% of the time we can have some cake or an ice cream if we want, or a cookie. Now, some of my clients have also reduced caffeine, as caffeine has been shown to increase anxiety symptoms. So if you have anxiety symptoms and are a regular coffee drinker, reducing coffee to just once a week or cutting it out altogether can alleviate symptoms. Now, lastly, it can be very helpful to limit your consumption of news and social media. And it's important to stay informed, but over-consuming sensationalistic news or social media can fuel negativity, anxiety, depression, and loneliness. Now, again, it's all about that 80-20 rule, and maybe spending just 1 hour a day on news and social media can keep that source of stress in check, but keep us informed and up to date with what our friends are doing at the same time. Now, in terms of calming the nervous system, using some relaxation techniques can reduce stress and anxiety. And I have another video called 5 Ways to Reduce Physical Symptoms of Anxiety. And the link to that video is below. Now, it includes a technique called havening, which has been around for a while, but has recently been made famous by Justin Bieber, as he uses it as a coping method. And so now younger people have been learning this technique with great results. So check that video out. As I said, the video is below, and along with that is a guided meditation that I made back when the pandemic started, and that's called Anxiety Relief for Pandemic Anxiety. So now, if you've tried all of these things and still feeling anxiety or depression around the lockdown, then feel free to reach out and we can discuss the method I use in more detail, which reduces anxiety symptoms in as little as 1 to 3 sessions. So feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to have a chat with you and talk you through.